Welcome, everyone. So the event today, Revolutionizing Brand Storytelling with AI. We're going to jump in and learn how to scale the content creation process using AI tools. And today we had the pleasure of hosting the workshop with Jeremy Sons, the founder and director of NotContent, who is here to share his valuable insights and practical tips on producing on-brand content more efficiently and cost-effectively. And before I turn it over to Jeremy, I'd like to quickly introduce Replo. Replo is a visual web development platform that allows teams to create beautiful, high-performance landing pages on Shopify without the need for developers. Replo is light years ahead of other page builders when it comes to customization and page speed. We have a library of hundreds of proving landing page templates that anyone can use, as well as certified experts who can help build custom pages in just a few days. So without further ado, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Jeremy. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and hope you enjoy the event.
Hey, Tim. Thanks, Justin. Apologies, everyone, for my voice. I've had a throaty thing for a few days and I'm squeakier and croakier than normal. So I might, if I start coughing and it goes too all pear-shaped, I'll just mute myself. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to go through some stuff, talk about how we can use AI tech and AI-assisted tech in 2023 to up your content, to tell you brand story, to do a whole bunch of other stuff, which really wasn't possible in this way previously. Everyone see the screen share? Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate it. Okay, cool. So quickly about me. I've been a visual storyteller and an image maker since I was in my early teens, starting in photography. And from photography, I went into graphic design and started working in some of Australia's very first digital agencies. And I'm going to take you through a few bits of, I'm going to scroll through as I talk. So this is like the stuff from my personal portfolio in terms of my design, my photography. I worked in digital agencies for a long time on big brands such as Pepsi and Samsung and Nike and those sorts of things. And then in 2009, I started a fashion label, which then took over the next 12 years of my life completely. And that taught me a ton of things about business and brand storytelling and all of the stuff that sort of puts me where I am now. So We're Handsome, which is the fashion label name, was pretty big, and we sold in, it just came up there, something 42 countries or something ridiculous. So this was really big in terms of my career development and sort of where we sort of get to now. Once we rounded out the fashion label, we sort of turned the brand into a branding and design agency and a bit of a almost like a venture studio where new and existing brands can come in and use our in-house talent and expertise to either kick off their brand or rebrand or level up or concept product or whatever it happens to be. So we have been doing this for quite a few years now. With a whole bunch of brands that we have either been involved in launching or have helped launch or have launched ourselves. And then from there, we get to last year, where we start this sort of new AI revolution, which I'm sure everybody is very familiar with by now. And we get to us launching this sort of sister agency called NotContent, where we've spent quite a long time over the last year learning how to use some of the AI generation tools and figuring out how to apply that to brands like ours and brands like yours, so you can use the technology to its best, to how it really should be used, rather than just outputting pretty images of whatever it happens to be. How can we actually use this as a brand? How can we reduce things like our timelines and our budgets and increase our output? Obviously, for things like content in 2023, it's not good enough to just sort of do 1 or 2 brand campaigns a year and then eke that out over a 6-month period. You need fresh content almost daily across every channel, plus video, plus all the things. And so we've figured out a way where AI can assist us to be able to do that. this is a blank slide for some reason. Here we go. So AI is pretty nuts. How nuts is it? It is AI in general, not just like there's generative AI and then there's AI. So AI in general is bigger than anything. AI is akin to the internet. Like AI is as big as the internet. And so generative AI, which is all of the things that we're seeing now in the consumer world and brand world, things like ChatGPT or Midjourney or Stable Diffusion or any of these writing tools, that's called generative AI. And as a subsection of larger AI, generative AI is like, if AI is the internet, then generative AI is like the invention of the web browser, like access for regular people to get into everything else. Like that's how big this is. It may not feel like it yet, but that's how big it's actually going to be. This is a little bit of a map of generative AI as it stands right now. And I just wanted to use this market cap graph this graphics to show you guys just how big AI actually is. I'm going to zoom out and hopefully this keeps. Where are we? I've lost it. Sorry. I'm going to zoom. I can only zoom to 25%. This is the AI map as it stands right now. So if this is the internet, and then our little section of generative AI is over here. I wanted to sort of like just give some scale to like what's going on, because we're hearing a lot about ChatGPT and Bing and seeing all these cool images come out. But this is going to be, it is so much bigger than everything that we're hearing about. So I want to talk about how obviously we can use it as brands and people who are selling products or services, but also just like in terms of a branding tool, in terms of producing content. There's already about 1,000-ish, between 1,000 and 1,500 tools for generative AI that we can probably use. Most of us on the call, or whoever's watching, like in our businesses today, we're in a very sort of point with the AI tools where there's an AI for everything. There's literally a website called There's an AI for That. Okay, so the last time that I looked at this a few days ago, they were at like 1,900 tools. Now they're at 2,100 tools. And I'll drop all these links into some show notes, which we'll send out afterwards. But this website there's an AI for that. And you can search, although their search doesn't appear to be working today, but you can search for image or product or text or it's just a huge repository of AI tools that you can implement into your business, tools that you can put into different platforms that you're using. Almost anything you can cover your business can be automated through AI now. There's an AI for that.com. So like there's a lot going on. It's going to affect our businesses in every single aspect of them in every single way, not just the content creation. But today we're going to talk about like content creation, because that's my jam. So we started NotContent way back in October of 2022. And it's been quite a whirlwind stand, because we structured the service and the agency with creative at the top. We realized early on that the AI is just a tool. And as a tool, like any other tool, whether you're using Photoshop or Excel or whatever it is, your output is only as good as your input and the skill of the person using it. So we realized like pretty early on that the creatives in this world are like true ideas people and creative people who have specific experiences out in the world are going to be better using the AI than anyone else, mostly because if we're using it as a creative tool, and also because the AI it's a blank slate, right? So it's basically a blank piece of paper. Yes, you can get anything out of it and you can get it out really fast, but if you don't know how to draw, you're not going to get anything onto that paper, right? So there's a whole bunch of tools that you guys might have heard of. And again, I'll put these links in afterwards, but some things that you may want to check out for image generation. So I want to sort of like give everybody the tools to be able go and explore some of this themselves. I'm not here to sell you on our service or NotContent. I want to show you how you should be able to use it for your brand, but I also want to be able to give you some relatively easy steps to be able to go and do it yourself. So for image generation and content generation, from a visual standpoint, Midjourney is usually the easiest way in, and there's another one called Dreamgeo as well. For most of the things AI generates are really tiny, like not huge for us to be able to use yet for very many applications. So we use something called Gigapixel generally, but there's a bunch of AI image scalers that will upscale your imagery. So I use something called Gigapixel, which is great. Canva is a great design tool if you're not Adobe inclined. There's another website called Bull Tool, which is a suite of content and image tools, and they've got a whole bunch of AI tools built into the one web app, which is great. There's another one that we use all the time called Barely AI, which is a Mac program that sort of follows you around in whatever program or whatever tab you're in, and it's like a writing assistant and a summary tool. I'm sure you guys have seen some things like that around. We use Barely. And then I'm sure everyone's heard by now of ChatGPT, which is something that we use pretty consistently on a daily basis as well. But how is it usable? Great question, Jeremy. I'm going to take you guys through a couple of case studies. I'm going to show you exactly how we've managed to use it as an agency and talk you through the process of how we actually went to do it. And hopefully by walking through this, you get an idea of like, okay, cool. If I show up at an image generation site journey or stable diffusion, like then what do I do and how do I actually use it for my brand and my content for my business? Excuse me. So we had a pre-launch brand come to us called Lucky Lad from Canada. They came and said, we're making a hangover gummy, to which I said immediately, okay, take my money. This is great. They came with just their logo and a couple of supplied assets. They came with their Lucky Lad logo. They came with a semi-poor rendering of their tin, right? But their first rendering, they had it designed. They had their first rendering of their tin. And then they came with their gummy renders, and that was it. And they said, look, we don't have anything else. We have a website wireframe, and that's it. We need images, we need campaign images, we need product page images, we need all the things. We had them put together a really quick brief, and this is their concept and campaign style. And we had them pull out a bunch of images that weren't relevant until we got down to something that was like, we felt was really doable for them. So they said, look, we really like the colors and the feeling in the morning, sort of, wake up style of the kin stuff. We really like the floating sort of elements and ingredients of the suckers stuff. And we really like the sort of 3D ring feel.
Oh, I didn't think about cheese.
Sorry, you want to tax about someone to add spice to it?
Ooh.
No.
Whose mic is on? Someone's mic is on. Okay, someone didn't think about cheese. Great. You should always be thinking about cheese. Let's just pause there for yeah, please think about cheese. So then they really like the style of this. Let me sleep. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you guys can see. So this is basically what the brand came to us with. So our process was we then gave this brief and pretty much everything you can see on this page to one of our creative directors who came up with the campaign style, a couple of ideas, and then wrote a reverse brief and then gave it to our AI operators, who then went ahead and generated some styles for Lucky Lad. And so this is like rough draft, first pass. This is where we came in with. We'll do something like style A, B, or C. There are a million things that we can do, but this is like we're using our creative director, who's a career-long creative director who gets what the brand is doing, gets what their mood board is saying, and reverse engineers something that's much closer to what they actually might want. So Lucky Lad, I mean, these look great, but they're not usable, right? There's a lot of blobs and just bits and pieces, and they look great as 3D renders, but they're not usable. They're not on brand. So Lucky Lad chose style C. They really like the sort of the gumminess of some of the shiny bits, but also the matte, the floating. And then we were going to add in all of their brand colors and all that sort of stuff. So from here, we go into, this is all the client sees, basically. They see style A, B, and C, and they choose something. Then we go into basically just generating, and this is maybe 2% of the types of things that we generate. And most of it completely unusable. You know, the AI tools are fantastic, but again, there's a real learning curve to them. You can get out a beautiful image by putting in a single word prompt into some of these machines. Again, it's not going to be necessarily on brand for you. You need to give it a really good solid brief and then work at it to be able to get things out. So we generate a whole bunch of images. They go back to the creative director who says, yes, 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 and then 10,000 no's. And pretty much after that, we then go straight to retouching, and you then get final art. And I feel like I'm skipping over some of the steps, but we're actually not skipping over any of the steps. The way that we've decided to run this new style of agency is by cutting out like a whole bunch of the back and forth that goes on with actually getting creative done. We understand that most brands and businesses don't have, world-class creative directors in-house, and that's essentially the service that we're providing. We're just using AI technology to assist us in being able to output it much, much faster and at a much greater scale. So here's where we end up with Lucky Lad after retouching. So these are all their campaign images, images for the website, images for their product pages. So that sort of gives you an idea of like the process that we go through on our end, having been sort of deep inside this tech for a while. I'm going to go back up to the top here and show you the second part of the brief for Lucky Lad. They came as well and said, we really want to have, what are we going to do for content? Like, these campaign images are great, but that's not, their greatest campaign, but they're not great for content. What do we want to do? They came to us with a ready-made idea, and because it's a hangover gummy, they wanted to talk a lot about like waking up on Sunday and like actually doing something rather than just feeling hungover. So they called them the Sunday Scaries. So they came up with these ideas and said, Sundays are for scaries, therefore helping your dad assemble IKEA furniture, for learning German on Duolingo, and they wanted it to sort of be humorous and tongue-in-cheek. This is the brief that they gave us. Again, we gave it to our creative director. We came back with some styles. So these are all styles based on this idea of helping your dad with IKEA furniture. We wanted to do some things that both like contrasted with 3D rendering style that we had created, and then some things that complemented it. We ended up working somewhere between sort of styles 2 and 4 and creating, I guess, a style 5 for them based on what they like. Again, we went in and started to generate a whole bunch of things for them until we got it right. We send it back to the creative director. Yes, yes, and 10,000 no's. We retouch, and then we get it output. I'm going to go back over here. We retouch, we output, we finish it, we make it feel like the brand. These guys didn't have a brand to start with, so we were really creating this from scratch. And then this is how it integrates into their actual brand content and their site. This whole job and process, compared with a traditional creative agency or a design agency, took us less than a week from the very first client call until the case study was live on our website, which for anyone who's ever dealt with any sort of creative ever is a ridiculous amount of time to be able to do something like that. And for Ali, who is the director of Lucky Lad, he came in with, okay, well, what is he going to do for his brand? He didn't have any idea for the images other than the little mood board that he had made on Pinterest. And then at the end of the week comes out with usable content and scalable content. That's the other big part of this is once you figure out how to use the AI to get to an inflection point with your brand and be able to figure out a workflow or a process so that you can produce content that is on brand for you and that tells your story. Then you hit this inflection point and then you can really run. So the next thing that we do for Lucky Lad is produce monthly content where it's within these things, and we can either, as creative directors, come up with concepts and then roll out that content, or he'll come with concepts ready-made, but we already have his style and his inflection point has been hit. So the next one I want to take you through, Joseph, you can probably unmute yourself now. So Joseph, you guys can see, is on the call too. So I wanted to do something with someone in the Replo community and someone who really needed some, Joe, you needed some content, I know. And so, Joe, do you just want to introduce Parents Are Human for a sec?
Yes. Thanks for working with me on this, Jeremy. So hey everyone, my name is Joseph. I run this company called Parents Are Human. We make a bilingual card game that helps people have deeper conversations with their parents, their grandparents, any loved ones. And it's specifically catered towards immigrant families where there's usually a language barrier. So every card is English on the front and now one of 15 languages on the back. And we didn't really have much creative at all. I mean, we are desperately looking for easier ways to create things that this year we're trying to go deeper into every single language, every culture. It's actually really difficult of a challenge because every culture essentially needs its own strategy, its own unique creatives that cater to that particular demographic, that whole community. So yeah, we were really excited to see what we could come up with together.
Yeah, so Joseph and I got on an initial call and sort of talked about the brand, and I guess just this is simplifying it a bit, but this is this is the extent of your current creative, right? You've got your packs and you've got your product, and then can you tell us just a quick story about this image that you've been using?
Yeah, so this to be fully transparent, we got really lucky. This was made by an amazing illustrator who put it up on a website called Mixkit for commercial, what is it, under Creative Commons with free commercial usage. So we saw it was the perfect imagery for our game. We changed the colors a little bit and then we put it on the front of our card game, and that was it. And yeah, most of our creatives on our website are just mock-ups. We do have a few photos that, yeah, we just haven't gotten around to that.
And so that's, I guess, where our conversation has started, is figuring out, well, how would you guys do content if the barriers to entry were removed? And so you and I went ahead and had a chat about it, and then you've put together some quick mood boards in terms of, we talked about some of the additions. You gave us this picture, which you really liked, which obviously fits in with the style of the illustration that you guys had found and been using. And then we sort of talked about some of your additions, and you threw together some quick colors and images of some of the additions. And obviously with the cultural stuff, there's a bunch of things that we would need to do with like wrangling and retouching and make sure things are culturally appropriate and not appropriated, as we talked about, and all of the little bits and pieces there. But we really wanted to see if this, and this is for everyone listening in, this is last week that we first met. So we really wanted to get to today's call and have something where we could show some progress for what you guys might do for your content. If I can find it somewhere in my document here.
There we go.
Here we go. Cool. So we started with the Japanese edition, and that initial, the initial drawing that you had used, as well as a bunch of the inspiration images that you had given us. And then we just went through and started doing like some rough draft generations in particular styles, so that Joseph and I could then, sort of hone in on a style based on a couple of the languages and a couple of the cultures, and then start to roll out that style across the different card games. The idea being that if he was going to use a single style, of which all of these look slightly the same, but they're all different in their aesthetic, I guess. If we were to pick a single style like this one at the top, then we could roll that through to the 14 other languages and have everything feel really tight and on brand. That would be getting us to our inflection point. So this is what we came back with for our Japanese language, and the concept was already there for what Joseph had done with the brand and the image of the parents sort of walking away. And we really wanted to introduce more of a cultural tilt to each, especially since if parents are human, or what did you say, 14 or 15 languages now, Joseph? You need them to be more unique, more culturally sensitive and recognizable is probably the word, as we go across with that many different types of SKUs. So we then did some stuff for the Filipino version. And again, these are not final renders. They've not been retouched. These are our initial ideas, getting things out of the AI, figuring out how we get to a style inflection point. And then we went from Filipino to Chinese, and we introduced sort of this nighttime scene with the lanterns, and came up with a whole bunch of really interesting looking stuff, trying to get to an inflection point. Joseph, do you want to talk a little bit about sort of just like where we ended up here, and I guess your thoughts on the process of how we got here, and then when you first came back to this page on the Figma, and it was like, here's a whole bunch of creative, like specifically for you. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, this is so my first impression was, this is really, really fascinating. As in, I'm especially shocked and pleasantly surprised by how even emotionally salient some of these are. What I didn't think about was how seeing this could potentially, because of the way that the illustration was done, it's facing away, it's a silhouette, it's not anyone's face. This could essentially represent any person's parents, right? And to have this imagery of potentially immigrant families, immigrant parents being in their hometown and walking through the place that they were born in, already created an emotional response for me. So yeah, I'm just really excited to see what else we can do, how much further we could refine this. I think it will take a little bit of more advising from the people. We've worked with hundreds of families now to translate all of the language editions, getting their input. Yeah, it's just really exciting.
Awesome. And I think the other thing that we have done, in essentially, Joseph, I guess like 3 or 4 days really, is, apart from honing in on that and being able to get you to some sort of minimum usable campaign imagery, which is something that you guys haven't had since inception, was then we sort of then talked a little bit about content, and you had done a few things through some of your social channels, and then we went and generated some flat lays for you guys. And again, these are like rough renderings with rough drawing mock-ups, but you would send an image with some like sriracha and like this, sort of nice like tabletop flat lay. So we thought, let's go and see if we can start emulating that. And what if we start to really like lean into the cultural aspect of it? And so these are obviously a couple of like very rough draft, quick versions of this. But again, this is completely different to what we see here on the left for your campaign images. And this is something that is infinitely scalable for you in terms of output for social, for stories, for videos, for whatever it happens to be. Now that we, for our steps from here would be, now that we've hit this inflection point, to now run with it and make sure that you have enough content for whatever channels and however much you actually need to put out. And that's the beauty of getting to that point and being able to have both creative direction, even though you don't have it specifically in-house like this, and then the content creation, because these illustrations, you got really lucky, as you said, and found something that was Creative Commons and we're able to use. But for anyone that's ever tried to hire an illustrator to do something, not only can that process be long and arduous, but also it's expensive, and you come out with 1 or 2 or 3 things that you use again and again and again. This process, the way that we've designed it, shows us that we can use things once and to almost scale it infinitely, over and over and over once we hit that inflection point. I'm making it sound very easy. There are a lot of nitty-gritty bits to it, obviously, and some very skilled people along the way, but that's the process that we've designed. So I want to sort of turn it over to anyone who's got any sort of questions now. I can talk you guys through some of the tools or some of these studies or anything that you've seen today. Happy for anyone to unmute themselves, or Justin to unmute either everyone or anyone, however it's going to work. Has anyone got any questions about it?
Hey, can I ask a question? This is Sri.
Yeah, hi Sri.
Hey, how are you? Thank you for this session. It's super helpful. I just have a question about the whole AI tools and resources and the landscape that has exploded in the last few months. Some of the things that we do as an entrepreneur is all about coming up with ideas in the ideation stage. And what I have done in the past is a lot of time has been spent in the ideation stage. Oh, I need to turn on my camera. Sorry.
That's okay.
A lot of time we spent in the ideation stage about the concept of let's say, an artwork or a product design or any of that sort. And that back and forth took almost about 2 months, 8 weeks of work, basically because we don't really use the right terminology that a product designer or graphic designer would understand. It's almost like, we are asking, to put it in very simple terms, we are asking the other side, the party on the other side, hey, can you give me the image of an animal? Well, animal can be 4 legs, and the designer will say, which animal you want? You don't tell me elephant or horse or cat or dog. So that terminology we were not using. And because of that, it took a lot of back and forth, and a lot of sketches were thrown on the floor saying that, no, that's not what I meant. I meant an animal with a trunk. Well, that means an elephant. Why didn't you tell me that before? So we got into that back and forth, and rightfully so, we were at fault. But now with the AI tools, that time frame of 8 weeks has got reduced to almost, I would like to say 1 day, but make it 1 week. 1 week of ideation, which is actually good for us. We can get to market faster. We can convey our what we want. We can make the other party understand what we want by showing pictures and graphics and so on. So I find that a very, very useful tool to have in our toolkit. But I'm worried about the loss of opportunities for the folks on the other side. So at one point I was happy, but on one side of me also says, hey, you're also taking valuable IP from the other side that they should produce. Yeah. So I wanted to understand your thoughts on that as well.
Cool. I have many thoughts on this. I'm going to go back to my presentation. So if we think back to the analogy about like AI in general being as big as the internet, and generative AI, which is the part that I'm involved in and everything that we sort of looked at today, being as big as the web browser, it's like going back, 30 years to the beginning, where we were all worried that the internet was going to take all of our jobs, right? And, it took some of them, and it, destroyed things like encyclopedias and, a whole bunch of things. And anytime with such a major technology shift that we have, it's always going to be a worry. And this time it's just, we're in this new stage where, because it's affecting, let's call it, in this way, creatives and creativity and a whole new subsection of the population, we just like don't seem to understand it. So there's a lot of pushback and there's a lot of stuff going on. But the big thing to remember here is like, this is not a trend, right? This is not going anywhere. We're not, no one's trying to take anybody's jobs or trying to take anything away. However, this is such a monumental shift in how we create things and for across everything, like just in terms of creation, product creation, everything from music to movies to writing to visual, like any sort of creation. It's such a monumental shift in the way that we create things that everybody has to get on board. There is not going to be a choice. There is not a choice of, well, I'm going to sit back here and I don't want the computer to do this for me, et cetera, et cetera. We're past that choice as a society, and feel about that how we will. We'll be up and down with it over the next few years. But if you don't get in and start learning how to use the tools now, then the chances that, yes, maybe what you do will fall away, or the way exactly that you do it, like with everything else. If you have a business and you're not an email now, you don't get business. You don't get to communicate with everyone. If you're pushing back on email, then you don't get that. It's the same size monumental shift. The other points that I've got on here, number 2 is that we're early. We're still very, very early. Even if you're on here and you've heard about GPT and you've used some of these tools and stuff, we're still like very, 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 very early in all of this. And like the next 12 months are going to be massive, and the next 2 or 3 years will be even bigger than that, but we're still very early. The beauty of that is that anybody at any point on the spectrum who starts to learn these now, and especially integrate them into your brand, into your workflow, whether it's for content, whether it's for streamlining what you do in-house, whether it's your CRM, anyone who puts the time and effort into learning some of these AI tools and these generative tools now will have an immediate first mover advantage to streamline what you do, make things faster and cheaper, to wow whoever is on the other end of your product, whether it be with excellent creative or the speed at which you respond to things or whatever it happens to be. So obviously this is a big part of my business now, but I'm also like a big proponent of like, go and start learning some of these tools so that you can integrate them into your brand and into your business, because it's going to put you way ahead of everybody else on the planet. My third point was there's an AI for that, which we already talked about. But please be careful, as I've fallen into many times. There's something called the AI tool vortex. You just get sucked in and you're just like, wow, these are amazing. And then you don't know what to apply, and you have decision fatigue. And then you're just in this like big swirling vortex of amazing AI tools, and you just forget to do any work. So try not to do that. And the last point for me, which is what we've designed our whole process and our business around, is about people. Again, all of these tools are a blank piece of paper. You only get out as good as what you put in. And so for services, and speak more to what you were saying, like, we don't fear for our jobs because we are career creatives and creative directors with long storied histories of doing the right thing for our careers, in terms of we have an expertise that the AI just doesn't have. We have experiences that the AI doesn't have. We're always going to need ideas people. We're always going to need people with a specific experience, right? If somebody wants to go and talk about really specific cultural things in terms of families, the best person to speak to was Joseph, right? Yes, you can ask ChatGPT, but it's going to give you a mix of everything, every piece of information on the planet. Whereas Joseph's specific experiences in running this business and creating this thing, he's the best person to speak to about that. And the same reason why, like, Justin asked me to come and chat with you guys, because my specific experience in exactly this thing makes me one of the best people to be able to talk about this. The machine can't talk about it like this. So people are not going to go there. I encourage you guys to, like, I'm not saying go and ditch creatives, go and ditch photographers, and go and ditch all these people in favor of letting the machine do all of your content. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying we still need these people. It's just that our jobs on our end are going to be changing pretty massively over the next, from now.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, that I see that every day in our creative process. As I said, what took weeks, now it can be done in one day or even less, because we are using the right terminology. We are using software as opposed to people. And AI is a great tool for us, both ChatGPT, Stable Diffusion, and the other platforms, including Midjourney and all of that, is a huge help for us now.
Yeah, it's
So
game
I
changing
agree with what
for
you're
every
saying.
business. Anyone else got any questions? Catherine, Nicole? Hulk?
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. I just wanted to ask, out of the tools that you shared with us today, what are your favorite tools or your go-tos?
Well, I only showed you my favorite ones, my go-tos. Have you got something more specific in mind, like in a specific context that I can help with?
Well, just for someone that's starting out, would Midjourney be a good place?
Midjourney is a great place because it's you can, even if you don't know how to use Discord, so it all works within Discord. Even if you don't know how to use Discord, it's the same as Slack or any other chat program that you can do it. I will, I'll have Justin put in the Slack group PDF of, like, I've got the presentation, I've got like links, so you just go and click, and I've got a bunch of like beginner, like YouTube tutorials, like, hey, Midjourney step 1, how do I sign up? How do I get in? How do I start making stuff? So I'll put all that in. So like, I would love to obviously give everybody just here access to the tools. Here's what I would recommend to use as first time diving into it. You really just want to make sure that you're also like, you're solving for a specific problem, right? You want to be like, cool, hey, like, one, go and play around, because this stuff is nuts. Like, I am messing around consistently and just for play, because it's, you know, it costs almost nothing. I'm sorry if everyone can, can anyone hear that? There's a, no, you can't. Okay, cool. The tsunami warning system is going off. I live in Hawaii. So sorry, Joseph, don't worry. It's only going off because it's the first day of the month, the first Wednesday of the month it goes off. But every month that I've lived here for 2 years, I've been like, oh my God. So
Tsunami
like,
coming.
so I wasn't sure because it's like super loud, like all over the island. Anyway, no tsunami, I hope. So what I'm saying is, like, you want to be able to solve for a particular problem. Go and play and mess around and click through the tools, watch some YouTube stuff, but then start thinking about your business and problems that you might be able to solve, or how you can streamline things. Or, you know, I'm specifically here to talk about content and visual content and written content and ideas, right? So if that's something that you struggle with, is like having to use the same stuff over and over again, or your budgets just don't extend the way that your platforms need you to be able to output stuff on a monthly or weekly or daily basis, maybe that's the first problem you're trying to solve here, right? And it's only going to be solved not by just like cute images that come out of the AI, but by like strategy and the correct amount of creative and the right creative ideas, right? So there's this fine line to walk between, we're flooded now. I mean, now we think we're flooded, but someone said to me the other day that by this time next year, we won't know how much of Instagram is real and how much is AI generated. And they think that like 90% of it's going to be AI generated. Like, literally, this changes everything that we know about visual arts and content, right? And that's why I'm like, everyone has to get on board, otherwise you will be left behind.
Yep.
That's a really long answer for you, Nicole, but also, like, definitely go and play, learn some of the tools, and start to figure some of this stuff out, but do it in a really specific way that benefits you as a business and a brand. So at the end of the day, like, you have to try to sell your product. Like, that's what you're here for, right? Like, you made a business, you want to sell your thing. That's what you want to do. You don't want to get sucked into an AI tool vortex and think, oh, imagine how productive I'm going to be if I learn all of these tools, but you still then have to go and get someone to come to your Shopify and actually purchase something. Like, that's what you should be concentrating on. These tools aid in doing this. So like, as I sort of pitched it, when Joseph and I first had our chat, I said, listen, this is the idea for us as an agency is to remove your content away from you as a brand. So you don't have to think about it. You don't have to produce it. You don't have to like overpay and then figure out where you're going to, and all of these sorts of things. Like, we're trying to remove this whole thing because we're creative directors. if we can understand who you are as a brand and what you do, we can get to a style inflection point, which you may already have. You may have, be a brand around for 20 years, and we've done some big brand stuff, and we're working on campaigns which are just allow brands to like extend the amount of content they produce and reduce the timelines massively. Anyway, I can talk about that stuff for all day, but has anyone else got any questions?
Yes, I would have one. Thanks for the cool presentation. It was really interesting. So my first question would be, in the process of generating these creatives, are there steps where you do manual work as well? So basically like designers kind of readjusting or like fine-tuning things manually?
Yes, 100%. So what we found after like tens of thousands and thousands of generations and a ton of commercial jobs now is that the initial output from the AI only gets us so far. So we have this sort of 80-20 rule, right? But instead of it being 80 up front and 20 on the end, it's like 10% of the effort goes in from the humans, right? For us to be able to like figure out, like for Joseph's example, his reference imagery and all of the cultural information that we needed to have to be able to output someone in a Chinese street in China, right? With a specific style of illustration and composition, all those sorts of things. Now, we managed to wrangle that so much at the beginning that we were able to output something really beautiful from the first go, but from there, it needs to be both upscaled and then it needs to be brought into the brand. It needs to be edited and fixed in the bits and pieces. So we put in the first 10%, the AI does like the bulk of the visual work at the 80%, and then the last 10%, which is arguably the most important, is retouching, and for us, it's retouching and brand integration. So for the Lucky Lad stuff, the AI did not generate its tin in amongst all of those cool 3D illustrations, right? That was all us and our retouches on the other end. So we finish it, we retouch, we get it ready for output, we get it on brand. And so like for Joseph's, the process now from those initial images would be to like basically upscale them, fix them, integrate brand, mess around with colors. For some of those flat lays, the things that Joseph and I are talking about at the minute are like, cool, this looks like a lot of Chinese characters, but we can recognize that it's all gibberish. So for his particular case study, we would need to remove a whole bunch of that stuff and add things in which are like culturally the right thing to be able to put in. So it's not just like, hey, here's just a bunch of stuff that looks Chinese stuff. So we always do that at the end. Otherwise, you come out with things that are just not right and not on brand, which nobody wants. That's not why we're here.
Thank you. Super insightful.
Sure.
If there's still time, I would have another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You talked a lot about the importance of the info. Do you have some best practices? I guess it's not possible to explain this in a short amount of time. Best practices in regards to becoming like a good prompts engineer, so to speak.
Yeah. So in the notes that I'll send, and I've linked through to like a few like very beginning YouTube. Like YouTube's just the best place to learn anything now. So some YouTube tutorials and then some channels which are really good for that. And if you go through some of those channels, you can learn how to engineer the input for the best sort of output. It is a real skill, and there are already people who are like on LinkedIn changing their like job titles to like prompt engineer. And it's going to be a massive skill for the future, no matter what kind of output you're actually going for. So there are a ton of resources out there. My advice is to like start away from the AI, and you need to have your concept first, right? It's like, sitting down with a blank piece of paper. You can't just draw out your final content. You need an idea and a strategy and how you're going to get to that. And you need to go and get watercolors, and you need to go and get paintbrushes and all of the things, right? Like this isn't the answer for everything. It's just a tool to help us do it faster.
That's a great answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
And one last question, not top of my mind. Have you also created like logos with AI yet?
Yeah, there's again, there's an AI for that. There's a bunch of services that allow you to create logos. Something that we're just starting to see now is creation of logos in vector format. They're just not very good yet. What we can do, with a couple of times that we've done it, is work on using the AI to give us initial ideas, and then again, the last 10% is basically designing them from scratch, because they need to be a logo needs to be pixel perfect. It needs to be in EPS format, all of those sorts of things. So the AI, the tech does exist, but it's terrible right now. So give it, I guess, 6 or 7 days, and it might be, it might be ready to go. But it is possible. But we use it. We have a very specific workflow that we use for all of our jobs.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Is the AI able to export files in like that vector EPS format so that every color can be adjusted? No, it's probably another. Is there another AI for that?
There is another AI for that. So there's a bunch of AI for that. In fact, Adobe already has a bunch of tools to be able to do that sort of stuff. Your specific, I guess, Joseph, we're talking about your illustrations and splitting them out into layers and changing colors and that sort of thing. Yes. We've actually been able to do that sort of stuff for at least a decade with both Illustrator and some other tools for color separation when we're talking about printing. Remembering that I came from fashion and fashion printing and pattern designs and that sort of stuff. So that's, again, the part of the AI is not going to solve all our problems, right? It's going to help us get that 80% done. And then we're going to go and put it into another full process. We probably use, for the Lucky Lad stuff, I would say that we used 4 to 5 different types of AI, apart from just Midjourney and Stable Diffusion for the image generation, 4 or 5 different tools, plus Photoshop, plus Illustrator, plus an upscaler, plus 3 different humans, but we were able to do it within a week. So it's I'm here to make it look really easy, because that's our job, but also you have to have the skills, the tools, knowledge of the workflow to be able to actually go ahead and get output like that.
Thanks.
Anyone else you've seen, Catherine? Questions?
I would have another one.
Sure.
The creatives that you come up with, are these also already AI generated, or just kind of like a mood board you assemble based on existing creatives?
When we come back to you with the styles?
Yeah, and the first step or second step.
Oh, with the ABC? Yeah, so that's you're choosing your end style. We want to change the way that we work with our brands. For Lucky Lad, we got on an initial call with Ali, and then the next thing I saw was ABC with the styles, because we had a creative director do it. And then the next thing Ali saw was a PDF with his finished artwork, right? Now, the process is different, because everything is changing the way that we approach creative and content and that sort of thing. We've designed our process to be really different, to be a super trustworthy process. We are creative directors and designers. Trust us to know what we're doing, and that we take your brand and can turn it around and output your content. The process is, it's not a pixel pushing process. It's not, oh, can I move this a little bit over, and can I do this, and can I do this? Yeah, we can change major colors, and we can do anything, but it starts to become a design process rather than an AI assisted content piece. So all that stuff can be done. It's just depending on what kind of service you need for it.
Cool.
Yeah. Any last thoughts, anyone? Questions? Okay. I'm going to put, I'll put everything, a link to the PDF, or Justin will put it in the Replo Slack. There's a bunch of links in there for you guys to click on and go and learn some stuff. I'm in the Replo Slack. So if anybody wants to ask a question offline or reach out, I'm in there, and come and say hi. otherwise, thank you guys so much for taking the time to spend with me.
Jeremy,
Thank you.
thanks so much. Fascinating conversation. Everyone, thanks so much for showing up here. There's a link to the community Slack if you're not already in it. And we're going to post this to YouTube in the next 24 hours at Replo HQ. And yeah, thanks so much again, Jeremy. Unbelievable stuff. Definitely everyone go check out NotContent.ai. And we'll see everyone soon.
Oh, good. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.